Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic. MAGA Republicans do not respect the Constitution. They do not believe in the rule of law. They do not recognize the will of the people. MAGA Republicans have made their choice. They embrace anger. They thrive on chaos. They live not in the light of truth, but in the shadow of lies.
He convinced half the country the other half's a bunch of fascists, and they don't deserve anyone's respect. Next step, diagnose all of them as mentally ill. Just today, Biden's Department of Homeland Security announced, probably in response to record inflation and out-of-control crime, that they're going to ask your doctor to narc on you if you're showing any signs of anxiety over what's going on right now in the country. What happens when the government finds out you're really anxious? Do you really want to find out? And while they're doing it, they'll help Big Pharma get rich by just prescribing you a bunch of drugs. It's all a part of the plan. Democrats want you to stay inside, shut up, get stoned, and watch more Michelle Obama on Netflix. And if you decide to venture out, you got to be angry. But it's Republicans who are the problem, right? It's not just kicking over a table. It's gone much further. Primetime reported last night on an 18-year-old man in North Dakota, brutally murdered over his political beliefs by a guy who thought he was one of those ultra-MAGA fascists Joe Biden warned us about. Apparently, there was a confrontation. The suspect, 41-year-old Shannon Brandt, said he was afraid for his life. So he ran the Republican kid over with his truck. So a lunatic kills a teenager over his politics, leaves him there for dead in an alleyway. No one's talking about the story. Are they going to diagnose Shannon Brandt with a mental illness? I mean, he sounds like he has MAGA derangement syndrome, but they won't. And not only that, they let him out on $50,000 bail, even though he literally confessed to the crime and gave the cops a motive. This is exactly the kind of country Democrats are creating, where they get their base all riled up over fear and then make us the targets. Victor Davis Hanson is a senior fellow at the Hoover Institution, and he joins me now. I'm just shocked this story's not gone national. Are you shocked?
No, I'm not. I mean, the left, it's ironic, Jesse. They were the people who told us words matter and beware of hate speech and don't generalize. And yet when the President of the United States says that 75 million people, and that's who MAGA people were, live in the shadow of lies, what do you do with them? What's the logical consequence of that? You have to do something with people who live in the shadows and don't believe in the Constitution. So you bring out all of these nuts, and they do something. And the same thing when Chuck Schumer gets in front of the Supreme Court, as he did as a minority leader, and says, you don't know what's going to hit you, Gorsuch and Kavanaugh. You sowed the wind and you're going to reap the whirlwind. Well, what would he expect? People would not want to chase out Kavanaugh from a restaurant, or there would people show up at their homes, or even an assassin would be there. And when the Pentagon doesn't bring any data whatsoever, Secretary Austin, chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Mark Milley, and they say that white rage and white privilege has infected the military and they're going to root it out. Well, then why wouldn't the Army not meet its recruitment? It's 50% of its recruitment it's met. 50%. Why would 45% only express confidence in the military? And when you have a candidate in South Carolina for the Democratic senatorial position, and she says these terrible things, stereotypes a whole demographic about whites, or the diversity, equity, inclusion officer in the Pentagon blasts white people as a collective, or people on MSNBC or CNN say that after COVID is over, I don't want to associate with white people anymore, or I'm so glad they're approaching to be minority status. Why wouldn't you have people go out and shoot people in Memphis or Baton Rouge? So this is what they told us happened because they said words matter. And it filters down to the street and it incites people to do things that are terrible, who are not stable people. But that's what they're doing because they're projecting right on to Republicans what they're very familiar with themselves. It's very dangerous what they're doing now.
They wanted to charge Donald Trump with incitement. Remember, for that speech he gave on January 6th, and he was responsible for anything that happened after that speech, even though he never really said anything that they could point to. How is Joe Biden not guilty of incitement then? If he's out there radicalizing half the country against extreme MAGA Republicans, and then some lunatic goes and murders someone who he thought was an extreme MAGA Republican, how is Joe Biden not guilty of the exact same thing they wanted to charge Donald Trump with, even worse?
According to his own rules that words matter and hate speech he is. He did that during the entire 2015 and 2019 and 2020 campaign. And we weren't surprised that on Inauguration Day, Madonna says she dreams of blowing up the White House, or Kathy Griffin has a facsimile of a decapitated head, or people are writing articles in Foreign Policy about having a military coup to remove the president. They've been doing that for 4 or 5 years, and they know it. And so they're a little uneasy about it, so they project what they're doing onto this mythical MAGA monster. But the problem is there's too many victims and not enough victimizers, so we end up with this charade of Jesse Smollett, you know, and mythical MAGA monsters in Chicago with ropes and bleach. And they do this all the time, and I think people are getting really tired of it.
They are. And maybe someone in the press corps can ask the press secretary tomorrow about this case, about this dead teenager.
I hope so.
I hope that happens. I don't think it will, but I hope it does. Victor Davis Hanson, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.